today to see where we wandered next. What a day in Lemnos, Greece. We came to town early, everything was closed, and the town we thought was pretty dead. As always, we're looking for those out of the way.
The head of Lemnos is Marina. It's also called Castro, and it's the capital of the island. It has a history of over 3,000 years and was once considered the most important city in Greece and a trading center in the Mediterranean. It may be named after the mythological priestess of Aphrodite, who became a myrtle tree, by the way. As you walk through the seafront, you'll see fishing boats still operating in this country. It's a long history of fishing. In fact, fishing is its third most important industry. The first would be agriculture, the second tourism, and the third fishing. We walked along the waterfront right after daybreak, and it was beautiful. Quiet, not a soul to be seen except a couple of fishermen mending their fishing nets. And of course, you always have to have the resident cat who is guarding the fishing nets. This little guy watched us suspiciously as we went by.
As you walk along the seafront, one of the very first things you notice about this little town is its cleanliness. Marina, Castro, is the capital of the island of Lemnos. It's been inhabited for forever, about 3,000 years. It's not big, it's 184 or so square miles. It's a Mediterranean climate, mild winters, and once in a while it even gets snowfall. It is windy in the August and in the winter time with wind speeds of 13 or so miles an hour. The Greeks say it is the wind-ridden. It's also 2 to 5 degrees Celsius cooler than Athens, making it a great escape from the heat of the city. The earliest settlement were of hunters, gatherers, and fishermen in the 12th century BC. It was under Ottoman control until 1456 and gained its complete independence on October 8, 1912 during the First Balkan War, and at that point became part of Greece.
Marina avoids the hustle and bustle of bigger cities, but it's known for its production of wine, especially the Rosso Canero. It's also known for its cheeses, the limnao, the melapasto, and the kalathaki. Kalathaki is made from sheep and goat's milk. There are three primary festivals, the Festa del Mare, that's the sea festival, the Della Birra, the beer festival, and the Festa di San Dionisio, that's the St. Dionysus festival.
One delight we happened on as we walked through the city was this little chapel. Just sits in a little square right in the middle of town, quiet, totally open. In fact, at 8 or so in the morning, the door was completely open. We went inside, and I found a tiny chapel, probably Greek Orthodox. I couldn't read the Greek. Only 4 chairs in the entire chapel. Lots of woodwork, lots of history here, probably a confessional, and a nice little park surrounding the church. It was sort of a quiet refuge in the middle of a pretty doggone quiet village, especially at that time of the day. We enjoyed it. It even had that nice woodsy smell. The town just has that flavor. The 17,000 inhabitants enjoy a pretty doggone quiet life. Nearly everywhere you look, there's a photo opportunity sitting off in the distance, typical Greek white. The streets are as clean as you could hope for them to be. Shops abound. Not much to do, not much to see if you're not looking. We sat down in one of the squares and said, well, we've walked the entire downtown area. Maybe it's time to move on. And we started to hear the cadence of a drum. And it really threw us. What in the world was a drum doing? And we looked up, and here comes a marching group of soldiers playing their music and drumming their drums. And we were really perplexed by what it might be. As the soldiers got to us, we watched and smiled as they went by. and I stepped across the street to ask a store owner what was going on.
In Independence Day, it was late because of a national election, but that they would be having a lot of festivities in the city, and that there would be something at the cathedral, and then later a big parade, and we decided to stick around and see what was happening.
Well, the soldiers formed up and got in ready to start doing their marching. Before long, we started to see officers and other dignitaries coming into the square in front of the cathedral. It was obvious that something was about to happen and would involve both military and civilian leaders and authorities. So we decided that we would head over to the cathedral and see what was going on.
It appeared that most people in town had already gathered. In a town of 16 to 17,000, that's not saying a lot, but the cathedral was really filled. It was filled with public dignitaries, common people, everyday citizens, and a good many military. These people in Thracian, maybe costume, I don't know, served as greeters. As townspeople came, the kids were excited that something was happening. This was all part of the religious portion of the ceremony celebrating Lemnos independence.
I wasn't sure what kind of reception I would get. I'm not Greek, not a member of Greek or Greek Orthodox Church, but as people kind of milled in and milled out, kissed religious icons, the kids were seeming to have a good time, and I did have a camera in my hand. So I wandered in, and nobody seemed to pay any attention to me. So I watched as the seemingly very devout people offered their prayers. I assume probably thanksgiving for the independence that was so hard fought to win nearly 100 years ago. And the cardinal or the bishop or the priest in this particular church offered a good many words of thanks and thanksgiving, I suspect. I think the military was there remembering their fallen comrades and their thankfulness for all the peace that's been in the area for many, many years, really since World War II.
As I stood outside before the ceremony began, I saw a photographer taking lots of pictures, and I went over to ask him if he spoke English, and he said a little bit. I asked him if he were with the press, and he said no, he was with the military. So I asked him what was going on, and he explained it to me. As I went inside, I saw him working the crowd the same as I was. I was standing on the floor getting some pretty good shots from the back, but they're long shots, we could handle it, when Karagunis, the photographer I talked to outside, came up and said, "Follow me." And he took me up front, and I was able to get good close-up shots, probably 10 feet from the bishop. And then he said, "Come on." And he cut back through the crowd, and we went up into the balcony and got some great overhead shots, and then wandered back down out through the side door. He said, "The festivities and the parade are going to start. When you get down to the ceremonies, be sure and find me."
As the blessings were finished, the dignitaries streamed out of the cathedral and began to process up the street with the military and other dignitaries. They were headed to a war memorial that was on the other end of this long boulevard along the coast. It was obvious that there was to be a ceremony. It turned out to be a wreath-laying ceremony. The war memorial was the site that would recognize those who had fallen in various combats. The clergy began to reassemble, don their stoles, and began to do a series of blessings of the war dead. I'm not sure the level of the clergy here, since I don't speak Greek, but it was obvious that this was a solemn moment in Irenaeus' yearly calendar with this blessing. With the blessings completed, the beginning of the laying of wreaths began. A long series here. This island has a long warfare history, and there were many of the fallen to be recognized. I lost count, but it looked as though there might be as many as a dozen people recognized or groups recognized in this very solemn ceremony. One by one, the dignitaries came forward and the wreaths were laid. That may have been the most solemn moment of the entire ceremony. It seemed to me as an outsider and foreigner, there was a hush in the crowd that whatever this group represents was something. The ceremony concluded, the clergy began their deshawling process and began to disperse a bit, and the festivities, the happier part of the day, soon began. And you can't get happier than little kids in costume. Boy, did this parade have that. Waving their Greek flags with their red hats and their colorful costumes, the little ones wandered down the street. And then we get all the kid activities, these Olympian hopefuls maybe, I'm not quite sure, but down the street they came with their banners. After the Olympians, we have the rowing club. And this seems to be a very popular one, shouldn't be surprising in a fishing community. A very large group of rowers, looks like a high school group and maybe a junior high school group of rowing enthusiasts. After the rowing club, we get the football club. The soccer team, very big. That should come as no surprise. Everything from the little toddler types to the bigger ones. And then finally the military. You know, as we looked at this parade, started to break up, it's much like you'd expected in any American town on 4th of July. People coming out and celebrating their heritage. One of the joys of travel is coming along, finding activities like this one, and being pleasantly surprised and meeting warm, friendly people going about their lives. We certainly did that.
What a day in Limnos, Greece. We came ashore and walked all over the downtown area, made a loop, and finally tired, we sat down in a city square.
We felt as though we'd pretty much seen what Limnos had to offer when we heard a drum cadence. That drum cadence got our attention, and we saw a military group come up the street and found an Independence Day celebration. Travel brings many unexpected things, and certainly Lemnos, Greece did that for us today. Warm people, wonderful place to visit. It's one of those things that you travel for. It's the unexpected, those things you can't plan and can't know in out-of-the-way places. We hope you enjoyed your visit to Lemnos and this festive celebration that the people in the capital city of the island have enjoyed today. Please join us next time and be sure and subscribe.